welcome. You're watching Korea Today on a Thursday morning.
For the first time this year, Korea's power reserve dips below the 3.5 million kilowatt mark, setting off the attention or level 2 alert.
That's right. The alert was only on for 40 minutes, but experts are raising concerns. Find out more in the headlines. And on In Print today, the government clarifies on what creative economy is. Coming up.
And on this Memorial Day, Korean War veterans from abroad are visiting the country to pay their respect for the deceased. I have more coming up later.
And more to come on Korea Today. Open space and greenery. That's not all Songdo's Central Park has to offer. We take a look around the landmark with architect Han Ji-seop. Visit the heart of Korea's ceramic art in the Gyeonggi province. Meet some of the country's centuries-old works of art on a unique pottery tour live on this Thursday, June 6, 2013.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on Korea Today on this Memorial Day.
That's right. It's a special day dedicated to those who sacrifice their lives for the country. Now, Seoul's Defense Ministry has been on a mission to identify the remains of some 7,200 soldiers who were killed in action during the Korean War in hopes of returning their bodies to their families. Now, they've set up clinics across the country for the family members to come and give their DNA samples. They've only been able to identify some 80 soldiers.
And hopefully that number actually increases as time goes on and the excavations continue. Today, there will be a memorial ceremony attended by President Park Geun-hye at the National Cemetery.
All right, we'll now go to Na Hyung-young for a check on the day's headlines.
The full-blown heat of summer has not yet arrived, but the nation is already on a high alert for power shortages. The Korea Power Exchange raised the country's power alert level 1 notch on Wednesday morning to level 2, or the attention level.
It's because of the prolonged heat wave. The heat wave brings the ground temperature up. So when it's hot, beginning early morning, air conditioning loads increase, causing an imbalance in power supply and demand even earlier than usual.
Now, the alert level was brought back down to level 1 after 40 minutes, but this was the first time this year power authorities have issued the level 2 warning. Experts say the nation is in danger of exhausting its power reserves, especially with the recent shutdown of 2 of the nation's nuclear reactors. Korea's 23 nuclear reactors provide 1/3 of the nation's energy supply. Meanwhile, prosecutors have raided the office of state-run power corporation KEPCO's affiliate, KEPCO Engineering and Construction, and arrested an executive-level officer. The officer, identified by his last name, Lee, is suspected of accepting bribes in exchange for approving fake quality certificates for parts used in 2 of the now suspended Shingori reactors. Rumors are flying around that this could be just the tip of the iceberg. On Wednesday, 2 other reactors were found to contain parts with forged quality certificates. Prosecutors are conducting an investigation into those cases as well. North Korea released a statement through its Red Cross Wednesday about the 9 young defectors that were recently repatriated. The statement condemned South Korea for trying to quote-unquote lure and kidnap the adolescents in Laos and demanded Seoul apologize for its criminal acts. It also said whoever was trying to kidnap the group should be held accountable and face harsh punishment. Seoul called Pyongyang's claims groundless and urged the regime to guarantee the safety of the defectors. Analysts say North Korea might force the defectors to appear on state TV to back up its claim. The U.S. International Trade Commission has made its final decision on the ongoing patent war between Apple and Samsung. On Tuesday local time, the ITC said some older models of Apple's iPhones as well as iPads infringed on a Samsung patent and issued a limited order to ban those devices from sale in the U.S. The final ruling overturned an earlier decision by the Commission last year, and now only a presidential order could reverse the decision within 60 60 days. The patent is related to 3G wireless technology, and Apple says it is planning to appeal.
Good morning, everyone. As you can see, a lot of eyes are on the nation's electricity supply right now as 10 of Korea's 23 nuclear reactors are out of operation, including the 4 halted after being found to have parts with fabricated certificates. Now, we do have an in-depth look on that issue with an expert coming up, but for now, let's go ahead and begin with our newspaper's Gyeongyang Shinmun, which shows a digital sign above Korea's power provider raised to attention level at 11:20 in the morning yesterday. This level 2 warning was reached for the first time this season, surpassing normal and prepare, all just this week. And scooting over to Mail Business newspaper now, its top headline reads nuclear irregularities to be unearthed from 10 years ago. Now, as the Park Geun-hye administration has called for a fact-finding mission on the forged test certificate situation to hold the individuals accountable to the highest level, the lead reads that their prosecutors are upping their investigations, probing the certificates issued by the company responsible as far back as a decade. And this does come as prosecutors also raided a number of offices yesterday, as you just heard, including the headquarters and the branch office of an affiliate of Korea Electric Power Corporation, which is charged with confirming those certificates. Meanwhile, a number of leaders in the industry are expressing their intent to resign, including the president of Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company, Kim Kyun-sup, as according to the article. And scooting over to Chungang Daily now, we'll leave that issue there. And on Chungang Daily, its main headline reads, "Heart of creative economy is youth-led startups and software development." Now, the article begins with an anecdote of a 21-year-old creative mind, Yoo Soo-hwan, who developed a bus application when he identified a need inspired by his own experience where he missed the last bus of the day after finishing his academy schedule. Now, when he set out to build the application itself, he was met with a lot of red tape and criticism when he tried to access bus schedules from the government, people saying that he was trying to benefit or profit from public data, and eventually he lost that idea to a major web portal company. And this is the kind of experience that the government says it hopes to avoid by changing the environment to a partnership mode with related science and ICT offices. It announced yesterday that it will create a new market to switch gears on Korea's growth engine from a chasing, externally sensitive model to one that is pace-setting and pioneering in form. And finally, let's take a look at 동아일보's front page. It has an image reflecting a special day in Korea today, Memorial Day. Now, the title reads, "Looking for 18-year-old brother." There he is there. And it shows one woman who is pointing to the name of her brother, Shin Deok-gyun, who lost his life in the war some 60 years ago. His body was never found, and so this is the place she comes to remember him, where time has stopped for this 18-year-old. And that wraps your look at what's in print on this Thursday. Here comes your market action from Wednesday.
As we mentioned in our opening, today is Memorial Day here in Korea, and the Korean government has been inviting thousands of war veterans who fought during the Korean War. Some 1.9 million soldiers from 21 nations fought side by side. And our Kim Chan-ju was able to meet with some of those brave men. Good morning, Chan-ju.
Good morning to you all. To commemorate this day and to those who sacrificed their lives for Korea, I have the chance to meet the very brave foreign Korean War veterans who came to the country after some 6 years. So let's take a look. Last week, a special ceremony for the reconstruction of a monument honoring French veterans who served in the Korean War was held at a park in Suwon, Gyeonggi Province. French Korean War veterans attended this event. Although they are no longer young, all of them still clearly remember the city of Suwon, where they were once stationed. This site is no longer war zone. Instead, with the fallen soldiers at rest here, it serves as a special reminder of the veterans that the brutal battle has come to an end.
I'm glad I was able to learn the names of my fellow soldiers who fought with me in the Korean War. I'm honored and proud knowing the war we fought 60 years ago with my soldiers were not in vain. Rather, our sacrifices helped to build the advanced and developed South Korea that it is today.
The Korean War started in 1950 and lasted for 3 years, with 1,026,000 Korean soldiers and 1,094,000 foreign soldiers from 21 different countries fighting the bloody battle. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the Korean War, and since 1975, the South Korean government has been inviting UN war veterans and their families back to the country. 29,000 of them have so far visited.
First and foremost, we want to show our heartfelt appreciation to all those who fought with our country during the Korean War. We also hope we can teach the younger generation that without the help of these brave soldiers, Korea wouldn't be the country it is today.
In May, when President Park Geun-hye made her first trip to the U.S. since taking office, her first stop was the Arlington National Cemetery to visit the Korean War Memorial.
A nation honors her sons and daughters who answer the call to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met.
For all these years, the South Korean government has maintained close relations with Korean War combatant countries and continued various programs for their veterans and their families, such as providing medical assistance and offering study abroad opportunities. In return, many Korean War veterans are showing their love and support through donations to Korea.
Going home. Thank you, Korea.
Thank you, Korea.
For many, it's their first time visiting this country since the Korean War. What are their thoughts about South Korea then and now?
Oh, your hard work.
This opportunity was also an unforgettable occasion for the family members who joined the trip.
Feel great, and it's good to see how much the country has economically has grown, and I give the Korean credit, Korean government or Korean people, because it's such a short span in 63 years to be where you are now. And I'm very happy for Korean people.
Oh, it was terrific. It was just amazing how they treated the veterans and what they wanted to do for them. It just made them feel so, made them realize how much they did and how much you're grateful.
Many of the war veterans are not young and physically young as they used to be 60 years ago. Though regardless of their age, Korea will never be forgotten.
Freedom. Freedom, which we want all countries to be free.
The other day we went to the War Memorial, and there's these young kindergarten children, and they all came to me and take pictures, and I look at them and I tell myself, it's worth it. It's worth it to do what we did.
Gives me that sense of appreciation and gratitude and special sentiment whenever I see those foreign war veterans come back to Korea. But what was it like for you, Chan-ju, to meet them in person?
Well, of course it was great to meet them who actually fought in the war, and
to this day, I could definitely feel the sense of pride coming from the soldiers and their families. And one of the families I spoke, they said that this trip was the healing process for those veterans, just to kind of give the idea and make them realize that what they did was quite meaningful, and those sacrifices was not in vain.
Right, what Korea has been able to achieve with their help, right?
Exactly.
Well, there are, the South Korean government still does reach out to the veterans, and also not just the surviving veterans, but also the families of those that were killed in action. But it has been 60 years since the war. Many of these veterans, they were probably between the ages of maybe 18 to 20, 25. So they're of old age now. How many surviving veterans are there now?
Well, that's a good question. As of 2010, it was noted that about 250,000 Korean war veterans abroad are still alive, and the Korean government has been providing their gratitude towards those war veterans by inviting them back. And of course, 29,000 of them have visited so far. And of course, 21 countries who fought for the Korean War, they're all scheduled to visit Korea within this year.
So many more will visit for sure. And the government and various NGOs remembering these war veterans and showing them the due respect and gratitude can perhaps lead to better relations with some of these other countries.
Of course, at the ceremony in Suwon in Gyeonggi Province, French ambassador that I spoke to said that it actually, gives this kind of humanitarian touch to the relationship between those countries, the combatant countries, with Korea from the Korean War. And of course, there was something that happened over the weekend in Canada respecting the National Day of Remembrance to honor Canadian veterans of Korean War has been passed in the House of Commons. So they will be observing Korean War Veterans Day each year on July 27th. And of course, it was the day that the armistice was signed in Korea. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chanju, for that. Like Hyung-kyung said, it's always touching to see these war veterans back here in Korea.
That's right. The Korean war veterans, both foreign and domestic, they may not be with us anymore, some of them, but they will never be forgotten.
All right, still ahead on Korea today, a looming energy crisis. With a number of nuclear reactors on a halt and an early summer heat, Korea may face a possible blackout. Why has this happened, and what can the country do to tackle the shortage in power? Stay tuned for that.
And that summer heat does become an issue.
Right, definitely.
Right. So early
It's
on.
so hot these days. You can't help but turn on the air conditioner. But you shouldn't. Just because the country is in a crisis
Exactly,
mode,
we need to save energy. But at the same time, the heat will not stop anytime soon. I do hear that it is going to continue on today as well as tomorrow. Let's find out more with Lee Dami.
Good morning, Dami.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm reporting live from Yuseong-gu, Daejeon. Today is Memorial Day here in Korea, so that's what brought me here to Daejeon National Cemetery. I will give you a more in-depth look at the location, but first let's talk about the weather on this national holiday. Here in Daejeon, morning conditions are partly cloudy. We are seeing a layer of fog. However, conditions will clear out later as the day progresses. Current temperatures are about 20 degrees Celsius, fairly warm considering that it is in the morning. It looks like later in the afternoon, our temperatures will easily peak up to the 30s starting today and for the rest of the week, also over the weekends. Make sure to dress accordingly and, of course, protect yourself with UV protection. However, over in the East Coast, conditions look a bit cooler. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our mercury levels across the peninsula. Over in Seoul, lows are at 19 and highs will peak up to 31. Daejeon and Daegu look similar with lows at 19 and highs at 31 and 30. Gangneung looks much cooler with highs at 21. Busan and Jeju Island look similar with highs at 25. Now tomorrow we will be seeing partly cloudy skies with similar conditions as today. Now I know that temperatures are very hot these days, but let's do our best to save energy as much as possible. That's all I have for the weather. I'll be back in a few moments.
Right. At around 11:20 a.m. yesterday, the power reserve briefly dipped below the 3.5 million kilowatt level, prompting the government to issue a level 2 warning for the first time this year.
And with this is causing alarm as the energy crisis is continuing. Now, the shutdown of 2 reactors, as well as the uncertainty of when these reactors, as well as 8 others, will go back online. People are worried about the energy crisis. We'll find out a bit more.
Shortly before noon on Wednesday, the Korea Power Exchange raised its power reserve warning to its second lowest attention level, with the country's electricity reserves plunging below 3.5 million kilowatts. There are power shortage alert levels, which are preliminary, attention, caution, alert, and critical. And until 9 a.m. yesterday, the country had only issued its first preliminary level for the past 3 days. With unusually hot temperatures across the country, power usage has naturally increased, causing power reserve rates to dwindle. The country is so far managing the looming power crisis, but many predict that a larger power shortage may be pending.
We're expecting Friday to be the critical day, with power reserves probably hitting as low as 2 million kilowatts.
This year, the power shortage problem has become an issue earlier on than expected. The unexpected hot temperatures are to blame for, but the greater issue lies with the halt of 2 nuclear reactors due to faulty parts and fake warranties. In order to solve the lingering power shortage problem, the Korean government met with different industry leaders to enforce power-saving measures, as more than half of nationwide electricity is mainly used by large manufacturers.
We promise that this will not happen again next year. Now we need all your help to get through this difficult time.
Meanwhile, in order to save more electricity, more buildings will be required to keep to the indoor air conditioning temperature restriction, while during the peak hours of 2 to 5 p.m., the Korea Power Exchange will distribute weekday advance notices for power usage.
We can decrease the demand rate by either controlling the power usage or regulating the electricity voltage. However, I think the first thing to do is emphasize the importance of power-saving steps to the public.
Despite such governmental efforts to conserve power, many Koreans and business owners are worried about possible blackouts, spikes in electricity costs, and loss of customers and earnings.
Myeongdong is a popular tourist destination. If we can't do our business with the doors open, it basically means we don't want consumers and visitors inside the store. Many people don't usually come into a store when the doors are closed.
After hearing about the power shortage problems, I was worried my electricity costs will be too high, so I haven't been turning on my fan. I also try not to turn on the lights too often at night to conserve power.
As saving energy will most likely become a duty instead of a choice for Koreans this summer, all seem to be mulling over how to best prepare for the potential power shortage.
To tell us more about what has become the biggest story of the day, we're now joined by Professor Park Geun-hye from the Department of Nuclear Engineering from Seoul National University. Thank you for joining us, Professor.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. As Min-jung mentioned earlier, it hit level 2 yesterday, the power warning. But why is this happening? Can you take us through exactly the reasons?
Actually, just like a dilemma. On the one side, there is a peak time period, this like a peak time during the summer. And worse than that, actually, we're having 2 nuclear reactors being shut down because of faulty papers. So it's like coming from both directions.
I see. Now, we know that Korea relies on thermal plants for oil and coal, and also nuclear plants, as well as liquefied natural gas. Now, how much are we reliant on nuclear power plants?
Nuclear power is tantamount to more than 33%, actually 1/3.
1/3,
right.
About 1/3.
It's
so
a lot.
It's a lot. And the Korean government had been planning to increase that amount, that reliance to 50
The original
something
plan
by
is to be building more plants so that we can be producing as much, 50% of whole electricity demand in the country. But I think it'll be pretty much trimmed down to 40% in coming years because of all this nuclear instance.
I see.
And all this faulty parts, which is producing a lot of public basically.
So the confidence
exactly.
in nuclear power plants is fading just a tad bit because of these events that's been going on.
And the government has requested large companies to go on a power-saving mode, but many are concerned that this might lead to slow business and maybe have some issues with delivery. Now, what are your thoughts on this?
You're actually right, because as far as we are concerned, more than 50% of the electricity is being supplied to the industry sector. So that reducing or power saving means reduce production or actually delay delivery of products or actually exports to the outside country. So this would directly mean the reduction in our revenues. So that there's certain, again, another dilemma coming from the other direction.
So this will halt or slow down production a little bit on the business sector.
Exactly.
Now, the power shortage problem, it's not exactly new. Even before these two reactors and
it's been around for quite some time.
It has, and there are calls. A lot of people, as well as people in the industry, are calling for a more permanent plan. I mean, is there a permanent plan? Is there a way to eradicate this problem?
Actually, we could be doing like two-tier efforts. One has to do with reduction in the consumption or power savings on our side, on the consumer side. The other has to do with the increasing the electricity supply chain. And if it comes to supply, there are two ways. One has to be doing with fossil plants, and the other is nuclear. And as you could see, that nuclear is actually suffering from all this public acceptance these days. So we are actually trying to come up a better kind of energy mix. So original plan was to be building many nuclear plants so that we could be producing as much. 50% now is down to probably 40%. So other probably 40% coming from fossil and possibly and hopefully the other 20% coming from renewables. So there'll be 40, 40, 20 energy mix in coming years.
Right. Well, you're an expert on energy issues, and I don't know if this is a good question for you to answer, but what can Young and I do to conserve energy apart from what we know? What can we do to take part in this conserving energy efforts?
Just savings and savings and savings. That's it, as simple as that. We just try to...
Turn off the lights, things like that?
Not all the lights, but half of the lights. And also probably turn down air conditioning, and we're not supposed to have temperatures lower than 30 degrees in coming summer. So it's going to be a real hot summer.
So right now, all we can do is sit tight and conserve that electricity, turn off those air conditioners, and leave the fans running at least.
Exactly.
Well, it's a national holiday today, so businesses are closed today. But many are concerned about tomorrow. It's the real problem is tomorrow.
Actually, we were expecting to have this kind of first potential national blackout the second wave of June, which is next week. And the real one is coming in the second wave of August, when we are having two plants, actually two nuclear plants being shut down because of overhaul, nothing to do with this accident or incident.
All right,
so that's going to be the hard part.
We will have to brace ourselves for that.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Right. Thank you, Professor Seo, for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. And still ahead on Korea Today, we'll be visiting Songdo, a city that's been built with a design in mind, and it was modeled after, there's a park in there called Central Park that was modeled after New York Central Park. It's embedded with characteristics that's unique to just Korea. We tour around the park, fresh with greenery in Incheon City's Songdo district.
Building a so-called creative economy has been one of President Park Geun-hye's key pledges as she took office. But what this exactly is has not really been introduced to the public here in Korea. So to help us understand more about this concept, we have Mr. John Howkins, author of The Creative Economy, joining us in the studio. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So you recently took part in the Creative Economy Forum held in Korea. The concept of the creative economy, you say, is a new way of thinking and doing, but for some, this could be a little bit vague. So what exactly is it?
It's making money out of ideas. Okay?
Okay,
so
yes.
I make a distinction between creativity, which is having ideas, is what everybody does all the time. The creative economy is making money out of those ideas.
Well, the idea seems to revolve around the various dynamics between individuals, businesses, industries. But has there been an example where you saw this idea transcend across a nation over the years?
The concept really took off in Britain in the 1990s when our Prime Minister, Tony Blair, said that the future of the country, starting with the economy, but wider than that, started with people having ideas and using their creativity and innovation. And although some of them may be doing it in a small way in different sectors, if you add them all up together, it adds up to a large part of the British economy. And he highlighted that in the 1990s. But actually, it's been happening in America for a very long time. It's happening all over Europe at the same time.
Since President Park Geun-hye took office, she has repeatedly emphasized building this creative economy for Korea. Is this something that a government can initiate and produce concrete results, though?
It really has to start with individuals. And it's a business thing. It's a business management thing. It's an economic thing. But government has a role to play. Government has a role to play providing leadership, like Tony Blair did in the UK. And government has a role to play that making markets fair, making sure that competition policies apply, and making sure the regulations are fit for a creative economy.
So the government can still initiate it, but you do recommend that individuals initiate the idea and
governments can recommend and governments can inspire. Well, when societies, as they are going through a major shift in their economic structures, in the way that jobs are created, in the kinds of work that people do, in the relative importance of things like copyright and patents and trademarks, then it's really helpful if the person at the top of the government says, this is the future, this is the way we have to go. So when people are at school and college, and when they're looking for their first job, they can feel a little bit more confident that when they want to go work in design, media, arts, culture, innovation, .coms, that this is the future.
Korea is well known for its rapid economic growth, state-driven projects in the 1960s and 80s, and now is Asia's fourth largest economy, and we are now at a stage where we want to transition into becoming a more global economic power. What can Korea do to achieve that next step in terms of implementing the creative economy, using the concept of the creative economy?
Yeah, Korea has been very, very successful. It's built up huge companies that are world leaders. And I don't want to take anything away from that huge achievement. But the world is changing. And ideas are not only coming through big conglomerates, they're coming through small companies that are often very agile, robust, even radical in their approach to what they're doing. So Korea, without losing what it has, also has to give an opportunity to new companies.
Smaller companies.
Smaller companies, yeah. Companies organized in a different way, not big hierarchies, but rather loose agglomerations of individuals working out what they want to do.
Do you have maybe a picture of what a creative Korean economy would look like in the future?
I think it'll have more emphasis on individuals, on small and medium-sized companies, on micro companies, on flexible working, more international perhaps, sharing ideas with other companies.
Other companies in terms
outside,
of,
all over the world.
Right, not just domestic
not
companies,
just in
but international companies and interacting with them and having more ideas.
Yeah, and also maybe being more visible overseas. We outside of Korea, I spend most of my time in London, but I have an office in Shanghai. We don't really know what Korea is like. We know your products, but we don't know your people or your lifestyle or what you think. We buy your cars, but we don't quite know how a Korean car differs from another country's car. We don't really know that. So the creative economy is much more representing people's ideas, maybe even your culture.
So individuals having more creative ideas and the government supporting their ideas would sound like a blueprint for Korea.
And the government really helping young people get their first job in these small companies, making sure the markets are fair so that big companies don't abuse their dominant position. Competition policy, really important. And helping them work out a new way of working, a new way of having their ideas.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. John Howkins, for joining us today and sharing the idea and clarifying, actually, the idea and the concept of the creative economy. Thank you very much.
I hope so. Thank you.
You know, it wasn't the results that Koreans wanted. It certainly was a lot better than it could have been, though. For a second straight game, a last-minute injury time goal earned Korea bonus points as they drew 1-1 in Lebanon. Now, the team returned home yesterday with a very important 2 weeks ahead as they will host Uzbekistan on Tuesday and then Iran the following Tuesday. And for those games, expect some changes to Korea's lineup. At least for one, Ki Sung-young will be back.
Once we practice this week, a couple of lineup changes could be made to give us the best lineup for Uzbekistan. We will put forth our best effort and play out the best game for a good result. We can always feel Park Ji-sung's absence, but there is nothing we can do about that. The players we do have need to step up and play like this is our last game. If we pick up the full 3 points, then we're almost assured of a place in Brazil next year, so we're thinking positive.
Oh, yeah, how nice it would be if Park Ji-sung was still indeed playing for the national team. Of course, he retired from the national team duties over 6 years ago to give the up-and-comers an opportunity to grow with the team. Son Yeon-jae is going after her first significant gold medal this week at the Rhythmic Gymnastics Asian Championships taking place right now in Uzbekistan. And so far, so good. After the preliminaries in the hoops, Son has a considerable lead at 18.183 points. That's 4/10 better than second. In the prelims for the ball, she scored 18.250. That's good for a lead of more than 3/10. Now, she will compete today in the clubs and ribbons as well for the Korean side in the team competition. To baseball, Nexon took round one of the Battle of the KBO's Best on Tuesday. Could Samsung rejoin the Heroes atop the KBO standings? Perhaps with a split. Let's go to Mokdong to find out what happened yesterday. Kim Byung-hyun starting for the Heroes. Park Seok-min says, hey, I don't care about your World Series rings, and rings one over the fence and left for a 2-run homer. That makes it 2-2. In the 7th, Samsung down 3-2. Park Han-hee to left. Chang Gi-young gives it the shot. Not quite there. This would tie the game up. Now, there were actually a few Major League scouts in attendance, and they were there to see Oh Seung-hwan. And the Samsung closer didn't disappoint, throwing a perfect inning in a third, but this game would end in a 12-inning draw. Oh Seung-hwan's ERA down to a half-run now. Tucson and LG in the battle of Seoul. Bases loaded for Park Young-taek. He would take Kim Sun-woo to the not-so-sunny side of the park for a grand slam. 4-0 LG. And after building up a lead, how about some defense? Kim Jae-ho to right, but Chang Hee-yoon making the sliding catch as LG go on to win it 5-3. Kia at Lotte in the Southern rivalry. And Lee Seung-hwa steps up to the plate, flies this to center. Now, Hwang Jae-gyun is on the tag. Here comes the throw, and safe at home is the call. 1-0 for Lotte in the first. In the second, runners on second and third for Kia. An Chi-young grounds to second. Park Jun-seo goes home on the play. Kang Min-ho with a decent cover on the plate, but Na Ji-won slides right through it, and safe is the call. In the fourth, Lee Bum-ho thinks he has a base hit. Lee Seung-hwa thinks otherwise, making a diving catch. Beautiful play by the center fielder. In the eighth, Shin Bong-gi singles to center. That scores a Lotte run as the Giants go on to double Kia 6-3. Now, what a brilliant idea for NC to sign former Lotte great Son Min-han. In the second, Son has to think fast on this Park Byung-won comebacker. He throws out the 38-year-old, actually the 40-year-old, he's 38. In the sixth, the NC up 2-1, bases loaded for Lee Ho-jun. And that would be a grand slam to right, his 9th homer of the season. You know what? An inning later, Lee Ho-jun would come up with the bases loaded once again. And not a grand slam this time, but he does find the gap, and that would clear the bases. So Lee Ho-jun with 7 RBI in the game as NC go on to trample SK 11-5. And that is your look at sports. Remember to eat healthy and get some exercise today.
Thank you, Jason. It's Memorial Day, and our Lee Dami is joining us from the Daejeon National Cemetery. So over to you, Dami.
I'm reporting live from a memorial monument located inside Daejeon National Cemetery. This is one of the places that you can pay your respects to the many people that lost their lives or sacrificed their lives for the country. So first, I'm going to go ahead and pay my respects. All right, so today is June 6th, which is Memorial Day here in Korea. It is a ceremonial holiday that is celebrated every year. Now, here at Daejeon National Cemetery, there are lots of ceremonies that will be taking place. But first, let's talk about this memorial holiday itself. Now, this is a ceremonial holiday that is to pay tribute to the men and women who died while serving the country. This day was established as a holiday since the year 1956, 3 years after 400,000 soldiers lost their lives in the Korean War, which was waged during 1950 to 1953. Today marks the 58th anniversary of the holiday. Now, on this day, many people, including the president and key figures in the government, will be paying their respects across the country. Now, here at the Daejeon National Cemetery, they have opened their doors starting at 5 a.m. to the family of the deceased and to the people that want to pay their respects. There will also be a commemorative ceremony that will be held at 10 a.m. And also at 10 a.m. across the entire nation, there will be a moment of silence with the sound of a siren that will go off across the country. Now, today is Memorial Day here in Korea, so let's take the time to pay our tributes to the many people that have sacrificed their lives for the country. I'm Lee Dami, Korea Today.
Now it's time to take a look at some interesting and fascinating architectural designs with architect Han Ji-sup. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to start today with a simple question to all of you. Have you been to New York Central Park?
Yes, I once got lost there.
Well, we have a very similar place here in Korea, and it's located in Songdo district of Incheon. Let's go take a look.
Park is a rest haven for people who live and work in the skyscraper-infested concrete jungle. And the Songdo Central Park is doing its part to provide fresh air and relaxing atmosphere in the midst of the bustling Songdo International Business District. Songdo Central Park is a 400,000 square meter reclaimed land on the ocean, which is twice the size of the Yeouido Park in Seoul. The park is also the first seawater park in Korea, and its 1.8-kilometer water canal is a close benchmark of the famous Venetian waterway in Italy. Although such construction to fill the channel with ocean water is still fairly uncommon elsewhere, thanks to such use of the natural surroundings, this aqueduct does not freeze in the wintertime. If the park's exterior closely resembles that of New York City's Central Park, the inside is a contemporary layout of Gyeongju's Anapji, or Anap Pond, erected during the Korea's ancient Shilla dynasty. And here, visitors can enjoy the coexistence of traditional details redressed with some touches of the present-day Korea. Even in the midst of skyscrapers, there are still bits and pieces of Korean traditional beauty. There are various designs that details the shape of the Korean peninsula. For example, the hill by the waterway with its pathways and sunken lawn depicts the high plains of the peninsula's east and valleys of the west. The water canal that runs through the middle of the park signifies Korea's river, while this man-made island is supposed to resemble the country's archipelago out on the South Sea known as Tadohe. Songdo Central Park was designed not to only show off Korean beauty, but also to be environmentally friendly. All around the park, there are rainwater repositories set up so that it can reuse the water and also help reduce the cost of park budget. In the midst of modern skyscrapers, Songdo Central Park, with its conspicuous Korean traditional beauties, solemnly provides rest and great scenery to those who need and want the peace of mind.
It's interesting that the canal is filled with seawater. How did this decision come about, and what are the benefits of doing that?
Designing the environmentally friendly design uses the materials that are readily available around you. This is located in the waterfront, and we use the seawater. And it also helps the water not to freeze, so the boat can operate during the winter time.
Right, the park scene certainly seems to have lots of Korean traditional elements. So what does Gyeongju Anapji from Silla Kingdom have a special meaning? What does it have in Songdo Park?
Well, in design concept of Anapji, they try to mimic the bigger scale into the small place. So they have islands of Japan, the Korean Peninsula, and Taiwan Island. And we thought it would be interesting to replicate the contours and geometric special condition of Korean Peninsula into small space. And we did that in Songdo Central Park.
Well, it definitely looks like a place that I want to pay a visit to.
Right, well, thank you. We'd like to hear more, but we're almost out of time on today. So
well, thank you for having me here. See you next week.
All right.
All right, and joining us is Francois Sakely. We're going to be talking about ceramic art, celadon, and all these other things that I don't really know that much about, but you're going to enlighten us, right?
That's
Good morning.
Correct. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this time around, I was in Gyeonggi Province, which is known for its ceramics, and I was on a ceramic tour, and essentially the tour departed from Seoul, and the first destination that I had gone to was the Gonjiam Ceramics Park. And the final destination was the Yeoju Doja Sege. And so essentially this is becoming really popular with tourists because not only are they able to learn about the history of pottery itself, but they're also able to get some hands-on experience. So let's head on down there and see what it's all about. Korean ceramics have received acclaim for their exceptional and pristine beauty. And the cities of Gwangju, Icheon, and Yeoju, all in Gyeonggi Province, are the proud landmarks where the art of Korean ceramics started. All of these cities have become part of the world's largest ceramic festival, the Gyeonggi International Ceramic Biennale, since 2001. This special ceramics tour has become popular as tourists can see and learn about the history of Korean ceramics depending on the cities and stops they make. So right now I'm in Gwangju in Gyeonggi Province, which is about 50 minutes away from Seoul. And a long time ago, over a 400-year period, ceramics were made here for the royal households. Now I'm heading off to a ceramic park right now to learn a little bit more about this history. So let's head on down there and see what the park has to offer. The first stop of the ceramic tour line is at the Gongjiam Ceramic Park, located in Gwangju, Gyeonggi Province. As the city was nearby Seoul and its soil is perfect for ultimate ceramics, the old and new pieces, some royal ones dating all the way back from the ancient Goryeo dynasty's blue celadon and Joseon dynasty's famous white celadon, can all be found here. Ceramics is called the art of fire and earth, and the most important tool to make the best is with this Korean traditional kiln known as gamma. Here, beautiful Korean ceramics made with red clay are baked to perfection with fire heated up to 1,250 degrees Celsius. It's a show of just how much efforts went into each and every piece. So right now, I'm sitting in front of a traditional kiln that is used to heat up clay. And it's really amazing to be standing in front of this. I mean, the soil that is used to hold this thing together is really neat. It looks very old and traditional. I very much like it. There's also a special ceramics exhibition held in conjunction with the National Folk Museum of Korea in relation to a very important Korean value called bok, which means blessing or good fortune. From various household items that carry the value bok, you can easily identify the hopes and aspirations of Korean ancestors. After Gwangju, our next stop is Icheon, which was designated as a UNESCO Creative City of Crafts in 2010. So I just finished learning about some history and traditions with ceramics, and now I'm going to learn about Korea's modern-day ceramics. And for this, I am in Icheon. Not only will I be able to actually try making pottery myself, but I'll also be able to see artists right here on site creating their masterpieces. Here at Icheon Serapia, a new concept of recycling broken ceramic fragments has come alive as everything from sculptures to public facilities are made with ceramics. This sorinamu, or tree that makes sounds, are decorated with 2007 ceramic pieces and plays distinct and mesmerizing chimes every time the wind blows. At the ceramic making workshop, visitors can experience the process to its fullest as they can actually make their own pieces. So right now, I'm trying pottery for the first time and I'm really enjoying myself here. Now, when I'm looking at this though, I'm kind of wondering how this clay is going to become a dish, but I'm sure in the end, I will find out. With all kinds of personalized ceramics, from fish-shaped pieces to hand-drawn mugs, tourists especially love this experience as they can feel like master artisans themselves. This is Yeoju in Gyeonggi Province, where close to 60% of household ceramics are currently made. So I've arrived at my final destination today, which is Yeoju, and I already have the feeling that I'm going to see some amazing ceramics here, so I'm already excited. This is Yeoju Doja Sesang, the nation's first ceramic shopping complex where visitors can not only enjoy various ceramic pieces, but can also purchase anything from everyday ceramics to one-of-a-kind art pieces. This is one of the most popular places as tourists can experience and make ceramics on pottery wheels, just like how it was done hundreds of years ago. So I just finished making my first vase, and boy, this was such a fun experience trying to shape and mold this thing together.
I enjoyed touching the clay, and it actually feels very nice.
It felt like magic because the clay would change shapes when I touched it. I really liked the smooth texture of the clay, and this was definitely a memorable experience.
The Korean Ceramics Tour will take you to the heart of the country's ceramics, Gwangju, Icheon, and Yeoju. So be sure to check out these cities to experience and learn about the history of the art of ceramics.
I really love the elegant curves and details in Korean ceramics, but I especially like how you reenacted a scene from the movie Ghost.
Without
your
solo. It's funny that you mentioned that, actually. As I was making it, I started thinking of that movie.
I think everyone thinks of that movie the moment they start working on pottery.
So how was it for you, this ceramics tour?
It was a whole lot of fun, honestly. I had never really tried it before. And there are two ways of doing it. You can do it strictly with your hands, or you can actually use the wheel. And with the wheel, it's really interesting. Shaping the basic shape of the ceramic is not so bad, but when you start actually getting into the details, that's where things start to get a little more difficult. Like if you want to sort of curve the top end of a vase, for example, that's where it gets tough, because if you make a mistake, you probably need to start over again. So
yeah, that's why we have people called master craftsmen.
That's right, that work very hard to get good at it, that's right.
So apart from what we saw in the video, how can international maybe visitors come to enjoy the tour? How can they enjoy it to the fullest?
So what they can do actually is they can book a tour online with a tour bus that will actually go between all the cities. And another thing is too is that if you can't book the tour bus for any reason, then you can actually use public transportation, and it will actually stop at the 3 cities. So.
All right, so all you have to do is purchase those tickets for the tour and then go ahead and enjoy that Silk Road ceramic destination tour, right?
That's correct.
All right, thank you, Francois, for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to the end of this edition of Korea Today on Memorial Day.
Have a great Memorial Day holiday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 a.m.